sorry, did I say my name is James Foster, General Manager of Building Safety Engineering Environmental Department, Development Resource Center, Plan Review. We handle it all. We permit, we approve almost every development in the city of Detroit. So let's talk about the Development Resource Center. It's a complete oversight of development. It's in order to make development easier for you to navigate, improving communication between yourselves and the city of Detroit. We're not monsters. And you heard earlier today, we're nosy. Yes, that is absolutely true. You heard that everything needs to be compliant. You heard from Gio, that's absolutely true. We are here to assist in all of that. We are a primary resource, whether you're a new business owner, whether you're reactivating a vacant parcel, as Gary mentioned, if you're doing an urban farm, or if you come to me with a $5 billion project like the Future of Health, we are here to get them to the finish line. We don't treat anyone different. If you have an urban farm, or if you have a $5 billion development, and everything in between, we live with you through the life of your projects. And that's why I have here, you can now schedule a virtual meeting or in-person meeting with anyone on our team to get you to the finish line. No matter where you are in your journey, we are here to assist you in any way we can. And we are also here to facilitate any discussion with any city department, from the mayor's office all the way down to us, and everyone in between. We are here to be your single point of contact throughout your entire project.
What's going on, folks? Eddie Carrington, Mayor of Flux City, and I appreciate you chiming in for another episode of Flux City Weekly. This past week, I actually had an opportunity to be a part of a development summit, and there was so much good information that was shared specifically around all of the opportunity that you have access to as a real estate professional or developer in District 4. But there were a number of individuals from the city there that were doling out tons and tons of resources and information and contacts and things that you wouldn't necessarily know or realize until you actually had an opportunity to be a part of a summit such as what City Council Member Johnson put in place. So shout out to City Council Member Letitia Johnson for really giving a damn when it comes to real estate development in her particular district. The mayor actually popped in for a brief second, and that was pretty cool to see as well. But overall, a lot of valuable information that was provided. I did want to try to record my conversation as best as possible, but unfortunately, I didn't realize how low the battery on the device that I was using to record was. And so ultimately, I ended up missing out on capturing the conversations that we were having when it comes to the development panel I was a part of. But I'm pretty sure they're going to have a recap of this event. They probably are going to share a recording sooner or later, as well as the handout of this event as well. So keep a lookout for when that is posted somewhere on the City of Detroit's website. With that said, I'm going to share a few clips from the event with hopes that you pick something up from this initial introduction to this District 4 Development Summit, with a goal or hope that you eventually come across the event in its entirety somewhere down the line. So thanks for listening to me ramble. Let's jump right into a few of these clips, and I'll see you in the next video.
So just what does the Planning and Development Department do? We have a lot of great work that you will hear about over the course of the day, but predominantly our role is to set the city's future. And so we do that by working with our colleagues across multiple departments who you'll hear from today, but also in our work, we work to do the city's master plan, which is being updated for the first time since 2009. So if you haven't been to any of those meetings or engaged in that process, I would encourage you to do so. Again, it is setting the city's future for the next generation. So this is a great opportunity to tap into that work. We also do neighborhood framework plans, which are our most familiar interaction with the public, where we get with community. Those are more geographically based studies where we get with the community and various stakeholders to understand what their vision is and help set the table for that work moving forward. We also do commercial corridor plans as well as design assurance, and that's just a piece of the work that we do. A lot of times we engage with the development community when they get to the implementation stage of the work, but this is really formative and really what sets us up for success and a lot of the great work that you're starting to see emanating throughout the district. So, as Councilmember Johnson mentioned, there's a lot of planning that has happened in District 4 already. As you can see on the map, the District 4 is this lower portion of the area that has the color, but we've done planning all across the city, as you can see. District 4 has 3 strategic neighborhood framework plans, and what does that mean in distinction from other neighborhood framework plans? SNF, or Strategic Neighborhood Framework, or SNF, Strategic Neighborhood Fund, was an initiative that brought together philanthropy and city resources to really activate development and planning in these so-called distressed areas. And what we've learned from that process is that, number one, it's very important to start the conversation with community and understanding what their hopes and aspirations and also their challenges and distresses have been as they have resided in these areas and held them up for so many years. And so how can we begin to establish a stronger and more viable quality of life? And we do that through our SNF plans. The bonus was that these resources really helped to make sure that there was dollars, to bring those ideas to life, and that's what you will see throughout some of the information that we'll present and share today.
So the land bank is not this deep, dark hole or secret. It's not even a secret. I am privileged to be here this morning. Thank you to CM Johnson and her team. Also, my CEO is here, Tammy Daniels, and so we really appreciate her being here this morning as well. You can right hand. So I am a program manager for the real estate sales and marketing team, and what we do on our team is we sell property mainly through 2 programs that I think would be most beneficial to everyone in this room, and that is our marketing and our economic development. So for marketing, that is, those are parcels or structures that we list through a real estate agent. And typically what we would like to see, we typically will partner with the city of Detroit. The city will identify pockets of land or different areas throughout the city that they want to kind of encourage development. And so a lot of those sites move through our marketing program. So a lot of our developers will tap into that land. We have quite a bit of land, vacant land, contiguous vacant land available in District 4, either through marketing or through economic development. With our economic development, you are able to go onto our website, buildingdetroit.org, where you can go through our purchase property by application portal that we share with the city, and you are able to apply to purchase property. I like to say that that's kind of the way that you get into the land bank is when you submit your application. The moment that you submit your application, those applications come into my team, and then we pair your application with a project manager that will shepherd you and your project through our review process. So again, I do want to kind of demystify the land bank. It's not this deep, dark thing, but we want to partner with you. We show up every day to sell property. And we try to make it as uncomplicated as we can. We have some talented individuals on my team. They are ready to work with each one of you, and we are super excited about the mayor, her initiatives throughout the city. And so we are here to be a resource for each one of you. And I think that is my time, and I will. We do have
Yeah, they're in the background.
We do have maps, and so these are the maps of all of our vacant lands in District 4, of just about every neighborhood in District 4. Some of them are SNFs and some of them are not. But we have marketing sites, primarily in the Island View neighborhood, but a lot of our vacant land is just sold through our economic development program. So we have plenty of property here in D4, and so hopefully throughout this whole event, you will be interested to purchase property in D4 for your development projects. Thank you.
Thank you, Martina. And of course, if anyone wants to get in touch with the lovely Martina, her email is up on the screen right now, along with her phone number. She's great. I was just kidding before, I don't want to get in trouble. The land bank is a very transparent department, and we love it. Okay, we're going to go to the lovely Jill next. Jill. So, we get a lot of people that are interested in land bank land, are interested in city land. Oftentimes, projects involve both. Tell us a little bit about what the city process looks like, how we would go about applying for city land, what we need. I know we get a lot of incomplete applications for city land. Tell us about, what that looks like, that documentation, what, a competitive package would look like.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to say good morning to everyone and thank Councilmember Johnson. Thank Councilmember Johnson for putting this on and having us here today. It was great to have her opening remarks and the mayor as well. I'm so excited for this new, I'm going to say, chapter that the city is in with the leadership of mayor and also with the current council members. My name is Jill Bryant. I work for the Detroit Building Authority. The Detroit Building Authority has had a contract with the City of Detroit's Planning and Development Department and HRD to assist them with their surplus property since 2015. So if you find a city-owned property that you want to purchase, you would go through the DBA. So we're acting as the city's agent, you could say that. And the website for that is buyproperty.detroitmi.gov. And the types of properties we have commercial properties and vacant land. And so what I'd like to just implore that the process is about 6 to 8 months, okay? Now, we can't really shorten that, but what we can do with your complete application is make it smoother. So when you apply, if you give all of the information up front, that will stop us from having to go back to you, call you, reach out to you. And so I want you to make sure first that all your taxes are paid. So if you own other property in the city of Detroit, make sure your taxes are paid. If they're not paid, we cannot process your application. If you have any flight tickets on any of your city-owned property, make sure they're paid. We cannot process your application. And on the application, it asks, do you have any outstanding tickets or flight tickets or taxes? And people say no all the time, but guess why? That's not always true. So we do the research. We research when you apply, and if you are so, I'm not gonna say fortunate, but if your application works out that the city wants it to move forward, before it goes to city council, we check that again, okay? Also, you have found the perfect property that only you can see, because we get this all the time. Jill, nobody else has seen this property but me. I don't know what kind of lands you think everybody else is living on. Okay, but you're not the only one who has seen this property. So what I want you to put in your mind is that you are in competition for this property. When you're in competition for something, we do our best, right? So we do our best. So we do our best. So what I want you to do is when you write that proposal, when you write that application, I want you to think of that this application is going to have to speak for you. You will not be able to come to the city and say, I want to meet with everybody and talk about my proposal. This application is going to have to speak to you, for you. And so that means you have to include a detailed summary of what you want to do. Don't just say, I want to open a commercial building. We background? What kind of history do you have? Is this your first store? Don't just say, I want to open up a community center. I promise you that's going to get you nowhere. It's going to be a hold up right there. What does that community center look like to you? And people use words differently. And that's okay. But what you have to do is be able to explain in depth, what does that look like for you? What do you envision that being? Is that going to be some place where you're going to open up and just have offices for the community when they need space? Does that look like you're going to offer games? Does that look like you're going to offer senior activities? Does that look like you're going to offer health and human service activities? So be detailed on what you're going to do. And also think of it as the city is nosy. Yes. We want to know what you're going to do, but we also want to know what you estimate is this development costing for you to do it. What are your funding sources and uses? What kind of experience do you have? You know, if you want to open up a community center and you have a background in health, or you have a background in something that's related, put that on your application. If you have a commercial building already and you want to purchase the land next to it for parking, yes, the city is going to want to know what you're doing in your existing building. They're going to want to know in detail, because they're going to know, well, do they need parking? Because the city is not trying to have a city of parking lots. They really want to have a city of development. So keep that in mind. What is your experience? What is the time frame? These are the things that the city wants to know. I'm so excited that we came up with a new application, and this application allows you to create an account, and with this account, you can track the progress of your application. And it gives you a status update, so that instead of it just saying in process, it gives you a little bit more information. Now, you're still gonna probably need to call one of us at the office, but that's fine. But it gives you an idea of what's going on. Also, what I'm very excited about is that we have created a YouTube that shows and talks you through how to complete the application and what the city is looking for. Because again, like I said, the city is nosy, and you want to give all the information. The process, like I said, takes between 6 to 8 months. Just to give you a general overview, you apply for the property, it comes into our offices, we review it to make sure, again, you don't have any blight tickets, you don't owe the city any taxes, and that the application is complete. And I can't stress that enough. Many applications we get are not complete, so this 6 to 8 months process makes it take longer. And what's gonna happen down the road, you're gonna be like, I've been trying to do this for a year. Well, part of it is, did you include all your information up front? No, you didn't. So there are ways to condense the process, but the process is the process. Once you're approved, you will be sent an offer letter. That offer letter will have a broker's name on it that you contact. Now, if you apply for the property and you offer $1,000, okay? You get that offer letter and it says $50,000. Please reach out to the broker and have that conversation. A lot of times I think people get intimidated and that's where they stop the process. But I want you to reach out to that broker, and if you feel like you can't reach out to the broker or you tried and you haven't gotten a response, please feel free to contact me. Okay, reach out. Don't call Councilmember Johnson. I'm not saying don't call your council person, but most times we can handle that situation before it even gets to her. Okay. Again, I'm not saying don't utilize Councilmember Johnson, and so that process, the city departments review the application, and there are several representatives from several city departments that review the application. Many of them are in this room. So if you can imagine having 40 people to review your application, that's why it needs to be very, very tight. Again, once the price is agreed upon, you send a purchase agreement. You must return that purchase agreement with your earnest money deposit, which is a 10% down payment. Now, a lot of times we get the question, well, I'm not gonna be ready to close next week. Like I said, it's 6 to 8 months, okay? So go ahead, turn in that purchase agreement, turn in your earnest money deposit, because again, you're gonna have another 4 or 5 months, I'm just being honest, that you're going to have to collect the money. Now, do what you gotta do to collect the money. Now, true story, a gentleman came into the office last week, he said, you know what? I'm living in my car, because I'm stacking my money. I don't want anybody to go to that extreme, okay? But when we're ready to close, the city is ready to close. But we'll give you some leeway, but again, start collecting that money. Also, before we close on your property, like I said, if you already own property in the city, that's what the city is gonna do. Again, like I said, they know the city. They're gonna make sure you're up to date with all of your BC certificates of compliance on all of your other properties. If you're not, stop. The process stops until you get in compliance. And if you can't get in compliance, guess what? We pull that purpose agreement. The city will do that. So just make sure, because the city, we want people to follow what the charter says, okay? So, and you understand that, you want the city to look good. And one way for it to do that is for everybody to be in compliance. And then it goes to council approval, and then you're scheduled for your closing. So, it is a process. Again, what I'm hoping that you get out of this today is that you come prepared for this process. I do talk a little bit about zoning. If you found a property you would like to purchase, there is a zoning portal that you can put your use through. You can put your use, you put the address of the property you're interested in and that use. And that will tell you if that property is in agreement with that zoning. If not, you have to meet with the city planning commission. If it is, we can move forward. There are conditional. Sometimes there are some ways, that we may be able to get it in compliance. There's also a preliminary plan review that may be required. And again, this is just an opportunity for you to meet with several city representatives to talk about your plan, for them to review it and say, yes, this looks good, but according to the charter, there are certain things you have to do. Like, you just can't have a vacant lot and call it a parking lot. There are certain things you have to do now. You have to have some shrubbery, you have to have some lighting, you have to have some fencing. So again, the city is doing these things just so that we can all be in compliance. Before you close, make sure, like I said before, you have your funding in place. Review the title. Now, the city sells properties as is. It's a quick claim deed. Okay, so we don't always go through a title company to review the title. We leave that up to you. And also get a survey of the property. If you own commercial property, when you buy commercial property, get a survey. So many people think because they bought the supermarket that the lot next to it was included. No, it's not. You need to understand what you're buying. So even with the city, you need to understand what you're buying. Again, my name is Jill Bryant. My phone number is 622-4514. My email is there on the screen. We're in public safety headquarters. If you do want to apply for a property and you don't have access to a computer, we do have a kiosk in our office. We're there to assist you to hopefully make your application as successful as we can. Thank you.
I get asked this question a lot, and that is, how much do you want for that property? And I just wanted to tell you guys what I always get told by Jill and her team, and that is, make me an offer. We do not disclose, what the price is. Brokers will sometimes price property, but for the most part, it's just make an offer, and then we'll get back to you with a counter if we think it's too low. All right. Now that we know we can't buy property in 30 days, we're going to go to Martha. And Martha, hi Martha. Martha's going to talk to us about some properties that she has brought to us today to highlight in District 4, best district, that are available for sale. So Martha, do you want to take it?
Yeah. Before I get started, just want to kind of give everybody a little context here. So. Khalil, as was mentioned, our planning department sets the table, and when it comes to implementation, Josh's team, the public-private partnerships team, handles the shepherding for residential development, and our team, the neighborhood economic development team, is shepherding developers through the process if and when there is commercial square footage involved. A lot of times on mixed-use projects, Josh and I are working together. Sometimes it's just me, sometimes it's just Josh. But both teams are involved in the land disposition process as well. So when Jill was saying the city is nosy, that's us. And a lot of times too, people are saying, you know, hey, we want one of those city properties. Yeah, those are cheap, right? Like I can get one of those city properties, and I say yes, they are less expensive, and here's why. Because we get the worst of the worst, okay? Nobody wants this property. It goes into foreclosure. It's been vacant for years. There's a hole in the roof. Guess who ends up with it? We do. So yes, you're gonna pay less up front, but you're gonna pay a heck of a lot more to get that thing permitted by Mr. Foster over there. So I wanna make sure everybody's clear. I'm not showing you the best and brightest up here. I'm showing you the properties in the city's inventory that I think have the most opportunity. That doesn't mean that they're gonna be a slam dunk for any developer, okay? So I just wanted to make that clear. Hit it, Ross.
You guys didn't know we were going to burst your bubble today.
Sorry, I'm a dream killer, but it's because I love you, all right? All right, so our first parcel is actually almost, I think, 95 parcels altogether. We refer to it as parcel 492. Khalil alluded to it in her presentation. This is a huge chunk of contiguous public land, 12.5 acres, with frontage on East Jefferson. Now, we see a lot of opportunity here. Josh and I have gone through quite a few iterations of trying to market this property. It is in the floodplain, and so that definitely hampers a lot of the financing tools that our teams generally use, federal funding especially. But this is a pretty substantial piece of property, again, on a major commercial corridor with, if you look at the trade area, very strong demographics. We feel that for the mayor's retail initiative, this site has a lot of promise. So I just want to plug it as a land of opportunity for the Coalition of the Willing. Amanda and Khalil mentioned our gray box properties. These are properties city-owned that we tried to improve with ARPA dollars. What we did was we stabilized the exteriors. That meant new roofs, masonry, tuck pointing, new doors, new windows. We put a good number of dollars into these properties. We trashed them out so that it's just a little bit less of an unknown expense for those folks that are interested in purchasing city-owned property. These are right on Kelly. They're just one parcel away from the Hub, another project that Khalil mentioned in her presentation, that new cafe laundromat that's gonna be actually closing probably in a few weeks on its construction financing. So this is a really interesting opportunity here. They are 4 separate buildings, but they've all been given this gray boxing treatment. So just wanted to plug those as, you know, potential for new retail on this corridor. Oh yeah, who remembers Club 500? Come on, thank you, all right. This is another city-owned property right on East Warren, so we all know East Warren is popping. Eddie can tell you, everybody, you guys know East Warren's where it's at. A lot of development here. We still have a couple of properties that the city owns on this corridor. This is a single story, I can't remember how many square feet. Can't see the slide boss, sorry.
Oh, 8,500.
There you go. So definitely opportunity here. Many people remember it as a place where they used to go after school, pizza parties on Fridays, play some arcade games. I heard their ribs were great. So just saying Club 500's up for grabs. And I also wanted to say, that we heard from Khalil about the Vanity Ballroom. The Vanity Ballroom, after some years under private ownership, was taken back by the city of Detroit. It is a National Historic Building, obviously right on East Jefferson, major prominence. It is also falling apart. We are in the process now of getting a proposal that will let us know how much money we would need to put into it to essentially gray box it, just like we did with those properties on Kelly, so that it's in a better position to RFP or provide a request for proposals. We want to, oh boy, I see you, Antoine. We want to see it redeveloped. We also want to make sure that it is in the best possible condition for redevelopment. that it can be. Mr. Bryan?
This is great information, I really appreciate it. Could you tell us a little bit more, what is gray box?
What is gray boxing? That's a great question. So everybody knows what white boxing is, right?
No.
Okay. Well, I thought I only had 5 minutes here. All right. So usually when you're a developer, you are providing what is called white box square footage to your residents and your businesses if it's mixed use. That means you've got the exterior shell of the building shored up, you've got your systems in place, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and you've got your drywall up so that somebody can move in and make it their own home, their own store. We're taking it not quite to that level. We're gonna make sure that that exterior shell is in tip-top shape, roof, windows, doors, no bricks falling off, none of that nonsense. And we're gonna take all the trash and other debris outside so that you can go in there and see the bones of the building with the general contractor, know exactly what you need to do to get it to a white box. But we're not gonna take it all the way. We're gonna let you figure out how to subdivide the space inside, what systems you need, what the end uses are gonna be. That's gray box.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I'm gonna be quiet. My info's up there. Please get in touch if you're interested in any of these properties, or if you have a project in a privately owned building, maybe one you own, maybe one you're thinking about developing. If it's got commercial square footage, Neighborhood Economic Development Team is your team. Thanks.
Please redevelop the Vanity Ballroom, or Martha's going to chain herself to the building. I had to say
Don't
that.
want to see it.
That was gonna be bad. Okay, now we go to Josh. So Josh is our counterpart in the housing department. So every so often, we get more than one application for properties. We like to categorize these as some of the sexier properties. That's when we decide that we're just gonna RFP and pick the most competitive proposal. Highest and best use is what we call it. So Josh has brought some of those properties here today. We wanted to go out with a bang and leave you with what's to come. So Josh, you wanna take it from here?
Thanks a lot, Amanda. Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Yeah, Josh Bales, East Region Development Director with the Housing Department. Our team, Public-Private Partnerships, many of you know us already. We try to be the city's in-house pre-development consultants on anything that includes affordable housing, residential. Like Martha said, her and Amanda's team is us, but in the commercial space. And between us, we'd like to think that you can use us to get from concept to construction start. And we want to help streamline all those processes the best we can. Before we get to these, I just want to say really quickly about the city property application process that everyone's talking about. My team helps run the bi-weekly regional meeting that all the applications from the land bank and all the applications that come through the DDA on the east side all run through this meeting once every 2 weeks that Antoine Hayes on my team runs. And basically we have our department, the planning department, the NED team, the land bank, the DEGC, James Foster's team, the Department of Neighborhoods, anyone you can think of that is like regionally specific in the city is on this meeting hearing about these projects. And so they're not kidding when they say put details in that application, have answers to those questions already for us so that we don't need to come back and ask you more. Because there's a lot of people that have a lot of different lenses they're looking at. Everything from feasibility. If you tell us you want to buy a commercial building for $5,000 and you can renovate it for $40,000 when it's been vacant for 15 years, we're not going to believe you. The sources and uses and the actual feasible budget is huge. Also, detail about your use. If you just say rental hall, there's a lot of people in the Department of Neighborhoods that hear from residents that another rental hall in their neighborhood is not what they want to hear. So chances are your idea of a rental hall might not be the same thing as the nightmare vision some of the community members have. And so provide some details on what you'd actually be doing there so it's not an automatic denial. So just wanted to share a bit of that detail there because we go through a lot of these applications and we want you to have as best information as you can to make your application as competitive as possible.
Everything you heard this morning from the DBA, DOBA, your NED team, Khalil and the PDD team. My team is here to bring all that together for you and to make things easier for you, as easy as possible, and what we call getting you to the finish line. I see so many faces in this room who I've either communicated with personally, I've communicated on emails. I mean, look, it's almost anybody in this room can probably come up. Many I'm looking at can come up and do what I'm getting ready to do for you. But let me just say, development in the city of Detroit. It's not that bad. It's not that bad. Hey, matter of fact, look, it fits in the back. Fits in my pocket. Look at that. Oh, yeah. That's the development process, right? That's not bad. Anything from, deal structure. You're going to hear a lot about that later on. You're going to hear my name from David Howe and others. But you heard a bit about that earlier. We go, preliminary plan reviews, permitting, etc. I'm going to share with you just a few things that, Gary mentioned. And I think it's important to understand. I'm sorry, did I say my name is James Foster, General Manager of Building Safety Engineering Environmental Department, Development Resource Center, Plan Review. We handle it all. We permit, we approve almost every development in the city of Detroit. So, yeah, thank you, Councilwoman Johnson. Thank you for having me here. I am always humbled to be a part of this, this kind of a summit. This needs to happen every week. So let's talk about the Development Resource Center, just briefly. As I mentioned, it's a complete oversight of development. It's in order to make development easier for you to navigate, improving communication between yourselves and the city of Detroit. We're not monsters. And you heard earlier today, we're nosy. Yes, that is absolutely true. You heard that everything needs to be compliant. You heard from Gio, that's absolutely true. We are here to assist in all of that. We are a primary resource, whether you're a new business owner, whether you're reactivating a vacant parcel, as Gary mentioned, if you're doing an urban farm, or if you come to me with a $5 billion project like the Future of Health, we are here to we get them to the finish line. We don't treat anyone different. If you have an urban farm, or if you have a $5 billion development, and everything in between, myself and our team, and I have to say, two of my team members are here today, Christine and Latrice. And look, man, I don't know if there's any other, my team is amazing. And these are our single source of contact. We live with you through the life of your projects. And that's why I have here, you can now schedule a virtual meeting or in-person meeting with anyone on our team to get you to the finish line. No matter where you are in your journey, we are here to assist you in any way we can. And we are also here to facilitate any discussion with any city department, from the mayor's office all the way down to us, and everyone in between. We are here to be your single point of contact throughout your entire project. The preliminary plan review process, you heard a bit about that today? You gotta take advantage of it. No matter where you are in your development. 2 people approached me today and, hey, James, and I feel bad because they submitted to us and I had not scheduled their PPRs yet. But I'm going to make sure that they get them because we're just super busy. It's amazing. It became so super popular over the past few years that now is something that it brings value to everything and everybody. No matter again, if you heard from being competitive with a LIHTC, you heard from just wanting to understand the temperature of a neighborhood. You don't know whether you need to be stormwater compliant. You have rights of ways that need to be vacated. You don't know if your parcels need to be combined. Any environmental issues, anything, traffic engineering, we cover everything. And you can see that the value of this is a pathway to entitlement. Whether you need to go through the board of zoning appeals as far as any variances that are necessary. Many developers in this room has had to go through these processes, conditional land uses. Everybody has to do this. These are things that we want to just make it easier for you to understand how to do it and how to navigate them. I mentioned stormwater, access to city departments. It's funny, Gary mentioned everyone from the mayor all the way, that's in our meetings. Yes, well, the mayor's office is represented in our meetings. Our meeting is anyone from DPW. I'm not going to read it to you, but everyone. Even DTE is in the room. Whoever we need to have in the room is in the room.
We use incentives to level the playing field to attract development and business, to attract businesses here in the city. How does DGC evaluate tax incentive requests? I'm going to just briefly go through the rest of my presentation because I really want us to get into a panel discussion with these experts. We're checking box, right? Like the tax abatement request has to be consistent with the strategic benefits, goals, and or has to result in strategic benefits consistent with the goals and objectives of the mayor, city council. For instance, more affordable housing, development in our neighborhoods. I think Amanda Elias and I were cornering Zane here, the developer, and saying, hey man, you're doing great things in the city, but we want you in the neighborhoods. The economic benefits, again, I talked about job creation, and then fiscal benefits. We look at incentives have to create fiscal benefits for the city. Like an example of that is, despite a tax abatement, or notwithstanding a tax abatement, does a particular project contribute positively to the general fund? Okay? In other words, are we creating jobs, notwithstanding incentives, but are jobs created so that income tax moves to the city, and that's how parks are addressed. That's how we pay for police and fire. And so we want to make sure that the incentive isn't taking away anything from the city, but it is providing a net benefit. The crux or the cornerstone of how we look at tax abatements is our but-for test. And it's simply, myself or Alan or other members of our staff actually get under the hood of the abatement request, and we look at the financial model of the developer, much like a bank does. And we make sure that the assumptions with respect to construction costs, operation costs, type of debt, interest rates. I mean, we look at every aspect of a proposed project from a financial perspective to make sure that the proposed project request for an incentive actually is warranted, and then we want to make sure that we don't over-incentivize projects. So we got 4 metrics that we filter financial performance or anticipated financial performance through, like cash-on-cash return, internal rate of return, yield on cost, DSCR, thank you. I told you we got all stars. And so we obsolete building and contaminated properties, offset the high cost of development, and to achieve a feasible development project, and again, to help create jobs. Alan, can I ask you to join me, and then you can take us through the types of incentives? And I know I've taken more than 5 minutes. The rest of you gotta take just 5 minutes.
Greetings from Welcome to Detroit. All right, so just to get down to brass tacks, I'll talk about the different types of abatements here. Looks like first up we have the Commercial Rehabilitation Act, PA 210. So that's good for a term of up to 10 years, and it's used to encourage the development of commercial properties, typically used by businesses, multifamily. I believe the threshold is 5 units and up. I think some people may think 4 units would be what it is, but I believe actually the legislation is 5 units and up for multifamily and retail food establishments. Next up is the Obsolete Property Rehabilitation Act, PA 146. We like to call it the OPRA, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with. That's good for a term of about 12 years. And it's used for existing structures that are functionally obsolete and blighted commercial, residential, multifamily, and industrial properties. Next up is the Neighborhood Enterprise Zone Act, NEZ, PA 147. That's good for a term of up to 15 years, and that's used for development and rehabilitation of residential structures. So this is strictly residential. Next up is the Commercial Facilities Exemption, PA 255, good for a term of up to 12 years. And this incentive is for mixed-use commercial redevelopment in a qualified downtown revitalization district. Next up, we have 2 TIFs, Mishta Housing TIF, good for up to 30 years. And that's a redevelopment tool that helps incentivize the development of affordable housing units, both for rent and for sale, that's key, by using the incremental increase in property tax revenue generated by the project. These funds are then used to reimburse housing development costs. And lastly is the Brownfield TIF, for a term of up to 30 years as well. It's a redevelopment tool that helps revitalize contaminated, blighted, or functionally obsolete properties. Governments can capture the incremental increase in property tax revenue generated by the project. These funds are then used to reimburse eligible cleanup and redevelopment costs.
Thank you, Matt. So I'm gonna hand it over to Mara next, and I just want to say, over the last 2 years, 60%.
Give me 1 second. I just want to share with everybody that Gary is sending out the slides, so that information was really small, but you'll have it in your inbox.
I'm not trying to hide it from you. I'm just trying to get it all on the page. We want you to have it. But 60% of the tax abatements that were approved by council over the last 2 years were outside CBD, Midtown, and New Center. We consider that the city core. So actually, we are working very closely with City Council, the Mayor's Office, to drive development in our neighborhoods. And incentives are actually helping to lead that effort. So without further ado, I want to introduce Mara Lancaster to come in. Yeah, please, it's easier for you to see the slide. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Mara Lancaster from the State Historic Preservation Office. I'm here to talk to you about the Federal Historic Tax Credit Program. So this is an incentive that offers you up to 20% of your rehabilitation expenses as a tax credit on your federal income taxes. This is a great program because it's not competitive, it's not capped, it's not allocated like some of the other incentives that we're going to see today. As long as you meet the eligibility criteria, you receive the full 20%. It can be combined with other credits. It plays really well with some of the other programs, the MISHA programs and the DC programs that we've heard about already and we'll hear more about later. It can be used more than once at the same property, just once at a time, but you can use it over and over again over the years. And it can be used by the same owner. So if you have multiple different properties all happening at the same time, you can use it once in each of the properties. And then the credits can't be syndicated, which means they can be sold. If you don't have the tax liability to claim those credits, or sometimes if you need the money up front, you can't wait till after the project's done to claim the credit, you can work with a partner who will buy those credits from you. The eligibility criteria. First, you must be, the rehabilitation expenses that I talked about. It must be considered a substantial rehabilitation. There's a complicated equation that takes into account the adjusted basis of the property, and your expenditures have to exceed that. Second item is that the work must comply with the Secretary of the Interior's standards for rehabilitation. I heard somebody earlier refer to historic restrictions. Usually this is what they're referring to. But the standards aren't meant to be restrictive. They're meant to help you be a good steward of the historic resource. These buildings have had a past, they've had a history before us. We want them to continue to be useful today and to have a future beyond us. So that's what these standards help us to do. The property must be a depreciable end use. It must be a commercial entity. Owner-occupied residences do not qualify for the federal credits. And the applicant must be the owner or a long-term lessee. The building must also be a certified historic structure. Now that means that it needs to be either individually listed in the National Register of Historic Places, such as the Algene Theater or the Vanity Ballroom that we've heard so much about already today. Both of those are already individually listed on the National Register. Or it can be contributing to a National Register listed historic district, such as the Jefferson Chalmers Business District, which is map we just showed at the bottom. There are 40 buildings contributing to that district. So those buildings are already would be considered certified historic structures. There are many other buildings in this district that are potentially eligible. Some have already been evaluated, such as many of the schools that were already evaluated. Some of the groundwork, legwork has already been done for you. So if you think that you may have a historic building, please reach out to either me or to Lisa DiChiara at the city. She's on the Historic Designation Advisory Board, and we can help you to determine if it's already listed or if it's potentially eligible. If it's not yet listed, we can work with you to potentially get it listed, and that can happen concurrently with applying for the tax credits. I mentioned that it's 20% credit of your eligible expenses. There's a lot of things that count. I've heard people describe it as everything. If you pick the building up and shake it, it's everything that does not fall out. So that's the exterior walls, the roof, the windows. It's everything that happens on the interior of the building except for furniture or appliances. It can count for new mechanical systems, plumbing systems, elevators. What it doesn't count is additions, site work, purchase price of the property. Those expenses are excluded. And then some of your soft costs are also eligible. So professional fees for architects, engineers, developer fees, permit fees. It is a 3-part application process. Part 1 just verifies that it's contributing to the National Register or is eligible in pursuing that nomination. Part 2 is really the meat of the application, where you tell us what the existing building is, what the features are, the conditions, and what you plan to do with it. This is where you include your plans and specifications. And then part 3 is the part 2 also, you need to have an estimate of your rehab costs, but that is just an estimate. And then once your part 2 is approved, you go ahead, you do your project, and after renovation is completed, you send us photos that show us you did it the way you told us you were going to do it. And after it is certified, then you are eligible to claim credits. Here on the screen is a recent success story. It's the former St. Matthew's School, and it has been rehabilitated into 46 affordable housing units. So really great project and example of what federal historic tax credits can help a project with. There are some fees associated with the application process that are charged by the National Park Service. And some specifications on the application. It is all digital, but you must use the most recent forms. And they got sent to us at the State Historic Preservation Office first. We do the preliminary review in about 30 days. And then we send it up to the National Park Service. One of the most important things, though, is please, as someone said earlier, talk to us early and talk to us often. We're happy to take a preliminary look. It's so much easier to help you with applying the Secretary of the Interior standards at the beginning of the project. If you've come to us after you've gone too far down the path, it's hard to backpedal. But if we can talk to you early on before you started down the road, we can give you a good roadmap to help you get there. And then I do want to do just a quick mention. There's a compatible or a complementary state historic tax credit program right now, which is a 25% credit that you would claim on your state income taxes. It's 25% of your rehabilitation expenses. In some ways, the program is more expansive than the federal program. In addition to National Register listed properties, also state listed and locally designated properties are eligible to apply. Commercial properties and owner-occupied properties are also eligible to apply. However, there is an annual cap. We're only able to give out $5 million in credits per year. So unfortunately, we aren't able to help as many projects as we would like. And the program is set to sunset in 2030 currently. So while it's out there, it's not, it's limited time only. All right, I think that's the end of it. There's my contact information. Like I said, please reach out. I'm not meant to be a scary person. I'm happy to help you and get you to a successful rehabilitation.
Ask Josh to come up. I just want to kind of double down on something Mara said. Talk to all of us as early as possible and as often as possible. I can't tell you how many mistakes could be avoided just by coming to us early. You are not burdening us. We are here to serve you. So again, just talk to us early. Hey, Mara mentioned starting work before you starting work too early may disqualify. It's the same with tax abatements. Typically, there's a two-step process, a two-step approval process, and you got to go through the first approval, the first part of the process first before you start work. Oftentimes, and I underscore often, people come to us after they've pulled permits and they're disqualified. So I just want to double down on that. Talk to us as early as possible. And now I'd just like to call up our friend Josh Bales from HRD, and he's going to talk about some of the incentives that he and his colleagues are responsible for.
Thanks a lot, man. Good to see you again. I'm going to do my best to go through these very briefly, as I usually do in our seminar in slides, but as you saw earlier, I can do an hour seminar on just about anything. This one I'm going to keep very brief. I'm here to present three main resources that are financial resources from our department that are available. The first one is the big one that we are known for, that goes into all of the large affordable housing projects. The NOFA, or Notice of Funding Availability, is the main way in which our department's HUD funds, I was talking about earlier, home and CDBG, gets put into very large-scale affordable housing developments for the most part. This is projects that are also going for LIHTC, This is kind of like the main funding round that happens in our department twice a year. I kind of started explaining this earlier. This is something where to apply for this, you want to already be in discussions with us, likely for months, if not years, to get a project competitive for this, limited but very competitive, but could be very helpful funds on larger projects. We are just about to launch something that is a bit more approachable, and I'm very excited to get to share here, is that later this summer, we're going to be having our first small buildings NOFA, which is specifically for projects 2 to 7 unit scale, where you can use our financial resources to do a affordable, income restricted housing, or that could be a rental project like LIHTC, or creating a for sale affordable product using our funding. It's at a minimum of 5% equity on the developer. At least half of the project needs to be 80% AMI or less. This is a kind of pilot program, separate from the pilot program of our department, to try to find ways to help with affordable development on a smaller scale, especially as we're trying to get more of these single-family duplexes, townhomes built around the city. So we have a quick one-pager about this available at our table out there. We'll have more information coming out about it when it releases this summer. Please sign up on the city website to get notifications about HRD programs, and that's how you know when this gets released. And we would love to see a lot of projects in D4 come into this funding availability when it releases. I'm going to guess July or August, but keep an ear out. The other big thing we've done recently is the payment in lieu of taxes. We've been a huge success so far. This used to be a program that was only made available to those, capital A affordable, federally subsidized projects that had our home and CDBG and LIHTC in it, were originally the only type of projects that could take advantage of this program. But this got expanded at the state level a couple of years ago. There was great leadership in city council to make this available municipally. We just launched this last year. This is, you get into an affordability agreement with us. You have income restriction and affordable rent on your units of an apartment building that you're doing substantial renovation on, and instead of the property tax rate, you pay a percentage of the rental revenue you're making from the project instead of taxes. It can save tens of thousands of dollars annually on projects. The rate you get is dependent on what income levels you are targeting with your rates. And there's a whole process to go through this. We have a whole pilot landing page on the city website. I have one page about this at the table as well. This is the most accessible and most effective tool that we have to help people that would otherwise do what we call NOAA, or naturally occurring affordable housing, that isn't like taking advantage of like direct federal or state subsidy. This is a perfect resource for you to take advantage of to make the operating expenses on your project a lot more feasible, that even if it's not funding up front, it opens up more financing because of how much better your OpEx looks. So when you're looking for permanent financing on your project, having this pilot can really increase that potential. Just wanted to share what we were talking about earlier, that the DBA said that there is this new property application for city and land bank owned property, that buyproperty.detroitmi.gov. We have a one-pager about that as well. And also, our team has a new intake form through Neighborly to kind of submit details about your project in a more, formalized fashion than just shooting us an email. That we can then make sure you get directed to the right team to have an in-depth conversation about how we can help move your project forward. So you can reach out to just our general public-private partnerships email about that, or talk to Michaela or I out at our table, and we'd be happy to give you more information about that, because we always want to help you go from concept to like what is your path towards getting to a financial closing and getting the project started.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Again, thank you for inviting us to be with you this afternoon, Councilwoman Johnson and crew. It's a pleasure to be here to talk a little bit about capital stacks, which date myself, but a short time ago, this would have been a capital stack. As I remember, it used to be just dead net. Bank loan, that could be the borrower's bringing, and you got to deal with it. Nowadays, it's a little more involved. Developers will tell you that this process can be very challenging, intimidating. There's a lot of resources out there. Some people know about, some others don't know about. So, just want to tell you a little more about Liz, who's been around for a little bit of time. It's a national organization that's headquartered out of New York and operates out of 34 sites and covers 2,400 counties across all 50 states. So we're in it big time as it relates to servicing the communities that need the help most often. So as I mentioned, this has been in business 45 years, and during that time, we've invested $35 billion, which has leveraged another $93 billion nationally. This resulted in 83 million square feet of commercial property development, as well as 530,000 plus homes. So this invested in housing. Housing is the foundation of this investments, and it's also combined with strategic work around 9 programs, all of which are, some locations use all of the strategies and some locations just use a portion of them. For instance, in Detroit, we are focused around obviously housing, economic development, income and wealth building, and digital equity. So how does this work? So being a national organization, this takes dollars from banks, large foundations, corporations, and invests those in the community through partners such as developers and community business organizations that we use to partner in our communities. So this is a national organization, again, with a local touch. Locally here in Detroit, we have 35 years of service, of which time we have 455 million deployed, which leverage another 1.5 billion in development across the Detroit neighborhoods. We do that again through partnering with thousands of local community development organizations and developers per se, and nonprofits. So our housing solutions are focused around wealth building and decent housing. And we do that in 3 ways: through our lending products and investments, through home repair program, which we started that back in 2015 in partnership with the city, and that will provide loans, 0% loans to homeowners up to $25,000 to do as needed repairs to their homes. And thus far under that program, about 825 repairs are done in Detroit. Heirs property, which is a big topic now and somewhat newer, around maintaining wealth, as a lot of times people that actually inherit houses don't have the title work or it's issues that are involved with actual ownership or deed with the property. So we partner with CDCs and provide information that homeowners or potential heirs property recipients can use to make sure that they can navigate the procedures to get their home ownership deeded and documented. So this lending products are standard products. I mean, anywhere from the beginning to the end of the project. A lot of what we do in the Detroit area revolves around construction lending, and which eventually morphs into many permanent loans up to 5 years. Some of the project types, a lot of folks think that housing is a primarily product, which it was, but we also do mixed use, commercial facilities, charter schools. We have a national charter school department, as well as commercial and industrial projects. So some of the general lending criteria that we have, first and foremost, the project must create impact in the neighborhood and be supported by the community. I can think on one hand, a couple of projects that weren't accepted by the community and listed in. I understand that there will be stragglers out there sometimes that, regardless of what you do, don't want to see development in the neighborhoods. But a lot of times those voices, depending on the level, get heard. Just want to make sure everybody's playing nice in the sandbox. We were at Reed's Tour the other day, and it was one of the island projects, and it was a neighbor, and I thought she was upset. I'm like, who could be upset about having a redevelopment done in the neighborhood? This house was see through the ceiling, and it was in disrepair, and now you have something that's beautiful and used to be sold to another homeowner. So I didn't get what she was thinking about. I would think most people want development in their neighborhoods. Just a little more for housing. At least 20% of the units have to be affordable at 80% AMI. We will not do a all market rate project. It can have market rate in it, but there has to be an affordable component. Hopefully there's job creation. I know most of the projects that we see, the job creation is on the construction end, but sometimes with mixed-use projects, you have jobs that are created as a result of the business that occupy the space. Equity, so we do belong to both for-profit and nonprofits. So there is a little bit of an edge if you're a nonprofit. Equity is 5% versus 10% for for-profit developers. Equity can be in the form of the land or cash. Have that in your bank account. Team experience, of course. Hopefully you have some experience in a like project that you've created, and not go from, say, developing single-family housing to one that develop 50 buildings. Unfortunately, you likely need either a team member or a project manager that has that type of experience that can help to ensure the success of your development project. And then lastly, just support for minority developers and subcontractors. We like to see that the projects at least have, not all of them, but at least have some local contractors, as well as giving opportunity to minority developers. So I did want to mention about the Detroit Housing Future Fund, which is another product that this offers in its coffers. That is a low interest, round one was a low interest rate product that allowed a lot of flexibility in apartments, which at the time, around was around 50% AMI. So it dipped lower, but the interest rate offset the affordability that was required by those projects. So to close around, we won about 20 projects were done, close to 1,000 units. The fund size originally was 58 million. 87% of those units were at 80% or below. And development costs were around 146 million. I know that this deal, Arthur Murray, will be talked about a little later on, but I just wanted to touch base just a little bit on the deal, as this is one of the ones that a collaborative effort was done in terms of other partners that provide financing. I believe this one started off as a regular deal, conventional deal, where this was considered a senior lender that eventually morphed to a new market tax credit transaction, which, as anyone knows, it gets a lot more complicated, a lot more expensive, and a lot more partners when you get involved. So, just I think this was the leverage lender in this particular deal, and NBC, DGC, Invest Detroit, RAP, everything. Probably had around 10 different sources of capital in this particular project. So all that said is, this is out there as a partner that sees in these deals and knows what it takes to get these things done. Like I said back in the day, it used to be one or two partners that would get deals done. Now we all have to play nice in the sandbox to make these projects work. Here's the rest of my team. That list here, we have Al Washler and Brandon Ivory, who you might be familiar with already. With that, I will open with any questions.
Thank you. Quick question. Does this go outside of the city of Detroit? And then number two, will this take a second position in terms of financing that particular deal?
All right, so the first answer is this Detroit operates in Detroit proper. But this will go outside if it is part of another organization, another office in this territory. So that's the closest office we have, Leo, Flint. And then to your second question about the position, this will only subordinate to a bank. So if it's another CDFI, we're typically pair pursuing that organization.
Can you say that again?
In terms of the
Your
subordination?
answer.
Yeah, in terms of the subordination, this only subordinates to a bank. But we will pair pursue with other CDFIs.
Another question?
Ani Mendoza.
Good afternoon, everybody. I shall wait for you guys to say good afternoon, guys. Thank you so much for Councilman Johnson's staff for having us this to her for putting this on. This is really valuable for us to be here as a representative from the state, and I'm very grateful to be in the room with so many new faces and familiar faces. So, like I said, Ani knows I'm a community development manager with the Michigan Economic Development Corporation. I serve projects on the east side of Woodward, as well as New Hampshire, Macon, and Highland Park. If you have a project west of Woodward, you can still reach out to me. We're not bureaucratic quick like that, so you can still reach out, and I'm willing to support and help with the intake of any project across the city of Detroit. So today we're talking about the capital stack, right, and how to build that up. So my presentation is going to be on who that MEDC is, the tools that we have available, what to do if you've exhausted the equity you can put into the project, if you've taken on too much debt where the project doesn't get feasible, what do we do then? I know previous presenter and the previous presenters have mentioned tax credit programs, so I'm going to lean into that a little bit, and then what makes projects competitive for us. And there are a lot of MEDC recipients in this room, and that's something that I'm grateful to see for projects in District 4. So the MEDC, sensitive computer. Who we are, we're a leading advocate for business development, business retention and attraction, and community development with a focus on building up Michigan's economy. To accomplish this, we need talent. We want to retain talent. That's like the most important thing. We do want to attract talent to the state, but we all know that talent is attracted to place, right? And so if we want jobs, if we want people to stay in the city of Detroit or anywhere else in the state where they might be, we need to create that place, right? And so like, what is the place? It's the place where it's our third place, outside of work, outside of where we live. It is where we shop, where we eat, where we walk with our kids, with our parents. It's this place, right? And it's kind of hard to describe in words, but when you see it, you feel it, and you know that you're in that special place. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our community development programs. We have a few of them listed here. This presentation is not also for municipalities, right? But for this audience here are developers, consultants, so we're going to dive into a few tools, specifically the Michigan Community Revitalization Program, as well as the state brownfield tax increment financing tool that we have, and kind of just slightly mention the historic preservation tax credits, which Mara graciously presented on earlier. So for us to really be involved in a project, we are the state, although we are like physically local, we lean on our counterparts at the city, at the economic growth corporations across the state to say this is really important to us. You know, we're putting a pavement into it, we're putting a facade grant into it. We need to understand that the city is fully behind this financially, right? Because everybody can put out a letter of support. That's because we all want to see good projects happen. We need to understand what is the city's skin in the game in this, and that is really what drives the projects, makes them the most competitive. In different towns, like little Eaton Rapids, right? I'm not from Eaton Rapids, so I can say little Eaton Rapids. Eaton Rapids has a small downtown, and it's competitive in Eaton Rapids for a match might be a $5,000 facade improvement grant. In the city of Detroit, that oftentimes looks like an abatement. We've seen them in different forms over the years, but typically what unlocks our tools is that abatement. We've seen land sales, right? We had the land bank here presenting earlier, discounted land prices. But the city has to give something for us to say, we understand this is so important with the limited dollars that we have to make this project work. So Michigan Community Revitalization Program, and I want to get actually back to what that local match looks like. We lean in on those planning efforts, on the neighborhood frameworks, right? And he's in District 4, we think, like right away we think East Warren. That's what we think about right away. We know there's a micro district at Kelly in Houston, right? Like we know that that's there, we know there are planning efforts around it. The planning efforts are expanding all over the city. And so we lean into those, what the municipality is doing, where the Motor City Motor City match grants are. We have an awareness of those and where the city is doing investing in a strategic way. And so those do weigh heavily on, do we understand that this is leveraging the work that's already existing in the municipality. So the Michigan Community Revitalization Program, this is a program where we do grants and we do loans, grants up to 1.5 million, which sounds like a lot of fun money, and also loans up to 10 million, where we can have flexible interest rates somewhere between 1% and 3%. But we are gap financing, and that's important for us to say. We are a state entity. We have to make sure that we are being fiscally responsible as we disperse those funds. So we say, you know, you're asking for a $1.5 million grant, but did you look at this grant for Eagle? Did you see that some of those costs can actually be shifted to a different entity through a grant? We have to ensure that within reason that other financial tools have been explored as a part of our process. So eligible investment, demolition site improvement, does not include developer fees, acquisition taxes. And then we do have our standard underwriting considerations. Support cannot exceed 25% of eligible investments. And here bolded is ensuring that all other potential funding sources have been maximized. Have you maximized your senior debt? Have you put in the equity that makes sense for the project? And then we want a debt service coverage ratio of about 1.2. And I forgot to say, this is the ribbon. I know Ed here is presenting here pretty soon. This project was able to leverage a $1.5 million MCRP grant, and then also utilize TIF dollars as well. I believe it came to us, went through Michigan Strategic Fund Board approval sometime in 2022, and then had their ribbon cutting, I believe, in the fall of 2024. But not everybody comes to us for CRP right now because our funding is a little bit lean. We love to see the TIF-only projects if we're able to make them pencil. This is a project of a rendering on East Warren where they came to us originally for MCRP. It was not the right fit. They came back to us later for TIF funding, and we were able to move that project pretty quickly through our pipeline, and they're working on the project now. So MEDC, we administer the non-environmental aspects of the redevelopment, and Eagle administers the environmental aspects. So I know Mara was up here earlier. I did want to share, because we say we're gap financing, come to us last, and then we took out all the debt. Yikes, and that's a lot of debt, right? And then you put in the equity, you went to Eagle, and you got those grants, and you went to the DVRA, you got the revolving loan fund, and you did what you could do, and there's still a gap. That is where the new market tax credits can come in hand. That's where the federal historic tax credits could come in hand, the state historic tax credits, to infuse a bit more equity into that project so you can have the funding more available to see the project get done. So I did want to mention that. We have some information about the SHIGO programs on this pamphlet. I do have a table out in the exposition area, and I'm happy to hand some of those out. So I do want to just share also that our grants and our loans are performance-based, right? So we don't just give out like $1.5 million grant. We want to see it. We want to see the project happen. And to do that, you've got to get a certificate of completion, amongst other milestones, for us to be able to disperse that funding. So a lot of times when we do have our funding, you've got to always think about bridge financing in the back of your head, right? Because it's really hard to have that much equity right up front. And so when you're speaking to your senior lender, you mentioned you're speaking to the MEDC and bridge financing, because ours will not be dispersed right away until the project is completed, will a lot of times be necessary to actually move forward with us. So again, investing in place, is there alignment with the local vision, the strategic neighborhood fund plans that they have, these micro districts that are all over the city. And we don't do big box retail, we don't do capital improvements. If your building is functioning and you're trying to get a new roof, I don't want to say don't call me, but don't call me. Because we want to put properties that are not utilized anyway right now back to productive use. And so the property for MCRP, it has to qualify. So a lot of times it's obsolete, it's not functioning, it's contaminated. So if it's an active building, our tools are not meant for capital improvements. And then we look for readiness. I have to justify how important this work is. And it just is what it is. And so for that right now, the most competitive projects are the ones that are gonna be moving quickly. We're gonna say, okay, I know that I can get this bill in this amount of timeline within reason. So we look at this evidence of how quickly it's gonna be able to move. And then the demonstrated financial need. If you have a debt service coverage ratio that is dipping below because you're taking on too much debt and you model our programs into there and it makes it stable enough to move forward, that is what we're looking to see. So I know a lot of folks said it's never too early to reach out to us, and that's true because we might be resource connectors. We certainly don't want to hear about something too late. But the first thing that we're going to ask is who at the DGC or the city have you spoke to? That's the first thing we ask for the intake. And if it is nobody yet, we say no problem. I'm going to connect you, and we connect to the NED team, over to our friends over at the DGC so that that project is on their radar, because I know that they would want to know about it as well. So still reach out. Still tell us about your projects early. A little bit about our process. So we have a priority project identified. We're speaking. You're telling me a little bit about the work that you're doing. And then there's a demonstrated gap. We see a workbook where you say, look, there's this gap here. You know, my sources and my uses is not balanced. Then we will have intake all the documents. We'll do a financial review. I have an underwriter that's assigned to me that can dive into it real thoroughly. And then we can issue a letter of interest. And then from there, we do the statutory review. We can have MSF, delegate approval, sign our grant agreement or our loan agreement, and then get into monitoring the work that's going to happen. So again, my name is Ani Mendoza, redevelopment manager. That is a work phone. You can text it if you need to. Happy to do text messaging if that's what folks prefer. Oh, and I have time for one question. Sorry, but I will be out there, so you can come find me and ask more questions. Does anybody have one question? Save it for the table. Well, I was going to say I have the pleasure of introducing Kiana Cohen's of Invest Detroit.
Anybody know these two good-looking children?
Someone was looking for a phone out in the hall.
Is somebody in the hall? Okay, well, we got a phone with two beautiful children. I offer you, not a quote.
Good afternoon. So you have been at this since 9 o'clock. And I've been up, I know some of you know the Greek world. I'm gonna change it. Some of you won't know the Greek world, but I got on my Zeta gear because I've been at it since 7 a.m. at my conference. So let's do a little stretching, let's get some blood flowing, because we do a lot of talking, and a little bit, it sounds like we're talking at you, but we want to make sure that you have this really critical information. So, Invest Detroit. Who are we and what do we do? And I really want to focus on more of answering questions and getting down to the nitty-gritty of things. One of the things that you should have gotten thus far, if you didn't already know, it takes a village to get deals done, right? So you heard Ani, you heard David Powell and that panel, you heard Anthony Baptiste, who I think has gone from list, talk about the capital stack and the fact that there are layers on top of layers. And those projects, a lot of those projects that you saw, Invest Detroit was a part of, because we're focused on people in place, right? And so what I mean by that is we're trying to help in our own little small way with the very finite dollars that we have to create an economic environment where everybody can prosper. And that's both residents, that's businesses, that's development. And how do we do that? We do that through our four-legged stool. And our four-legged stool has always led with real estate, right? And so that's a place. But in addition to that, commercial and industrial, so that's that. Those larger manufacturers, that's where the jobs are. Because in order for us to have a thriving city, we gotta have a place for people to live, people to play, people to work, right? And so we also support small businesses. We do a lot commercial corridor type of work. And what we learned is, although we were financing the development, you all have retail space on the ground floor. And banks weren't financing that, right? Because these are startups or small businesses that didn't have the liquidity, didn't have the experience to be able to get a bank loan. Please step back. I don't know if anybody said what kind of organization either LISC or ourselves are, Community Development Financial Institution. All that really means is we're mission-based lenders, right? We do the stuff that the banks won't do, can't do because of their regulations. All right, so if you ever hear the word CDFI, that's all it sums up to do. And we can be a depository, we can be a credit union, we can be a bank, or we can be just a standard nonprofit like an investment trust. And then just for your knowledge, we have a venture capital team, high growth, high tech, seed, pre-seed, equity investment. So again, we're focused on creating that density, the jobs, the thriving neighborhoods, and inclusivity, which is also why we are a part of, and so grateful that we are a part of the Strategic Neighborhood Initiative. And Councilwoman Johnson, District 4, has multiple strategic neighborhoods within her district. Who are we? What have we done? How many people have dealt with Invest Detroit? Okay, good. So you already know who we are, right? This is what we've done this past year. My team is deployed, a little under 22, it is very sensitive, $22 million and leveraged 280, helps create and retain jobs, square footage, housing units. And this is what we've done over our 30-year history, right? $661 million, $4.8 billion. That sounds like a lot of numbers. We're just trying to impact lives. Everybody counts. And so again, we talked about how do we do it? Here are our products. Our products are simple, regular small business loans. That could be for tenant improvements, that could be for working capital, it could be any related startup costs, real estate loans, which again said is my bread and butter. That could be anything from pre-development, land acquisition, gap funding. We find ourselves a lot in a subordinate position. Justin asked the question, but he already knows the answer. I'm going to say it so he doesn't ask me. Invest Detroit is Detroit proper. Literally Detroit proper, 139 square miles. And yes, we do subordinate lending. Doesn't matter who it is, but we'll do subordinate lending, bank or CDFI, unlike LISC. And no, we don't go past reach. That's one of those things. We're a new market tax credit lender. We got our largest allocation this double round, $55 million. And so we're excited about supporting operating businesses in their capital improvements, their expansion of their lines, and so forth, so in that way. And then, like we said, we talked about the early stage venture capital work. We also support emerging developers in their engagement. Our key partners, folks you're already hearing from, hearing about, working with. And then some of the other programs besides the Strategic Neighborhood Fund, or SNF, Joe Louis Greenway, Small Business Support Network through NEI, Motor City Contractor Fund, which is a program specifically for Detroit-based contractors being able to, one, get coaching so that they can expand, getting access to more jobs, and the capital necessary. That's another sector of businesses that struggle to get capital from banks because they usually don't have collateral. And then Aviera Fund, which we were a part of the co-funding, and the next speaker will certainly talk about that expansion and growth, and then just, again, funding different programs to increase access to capital, but also how do we coach. Here's a couple of different projects that we've done over the last couple of years, some of which are in this district, such as Cashew Stage, Arthur Murray, which you're going to hear from Aaron Matthews later on today, and then a number of other small businesses and real estate development throughout the city. I'm not going to steal our Emery's thunder. I don't see him yet in here. I am not going to speak on Arthur Murray. I think that the developer is the best person to talk about that, but I will be here as there are questions about his multi-layered capital stack. So, what do we do? We lend $50,000 up to $2.5 million. I want you all to understand something. People think community development financial institutions, CDFIs, are nonprofits, and we're grateful. We borrow to live, right? We are risk takers. We take risks that others won't take or can't take because of regulations. So a lot of things that I've heard in the ecosystem about the way in which we show up, our pricing and things of that nature is, remember, we're taking a place that others won't. That's risk-based. So pricing might look a lot different than bank financing because we need to get that money back, not only to reinvest in the next project, the next development, the next business, but we also need it because we've got to pay it back to someone else. So I want to set that expectation and understand. So we lend anywhere from $50,000 up to $2.5 million is our standard. In the event that we've got the resources, we can go up to $5 million. We can play a senior position, we can play a subordinate position. We can bridge, right? Find our lot size ourselves in bridging the CRP dollars that Adi was just talking about, or bridging the historic tax credit equity that doesn't come in at closing that Mara was talking about. We also will do pre-development. We do help you with community engagement. If it's in a strategic neighborhood and it is a key project that both the city, ourselves, and the the Part 3 private and philanthropic partnership and public partnership is trying to think of what else. I want to keep it to where there's questions, Gary, if that's that.
You're just taking one question.
No problem. Anybody have a question for Invest Detroit? Yes, sir. So, process, right? I think that David Hall and that team all talked about process. And I will say that there are two things I want to say to that. Come early, and then you drive the timeline of your process. And what I mean by that is, yeah, can we get a deal done and approved in 30, 60 days? Can we get closed in another 60 days? Have we gotten a deal done and closed in 45 days? We have. But it all depends on where your project as far as readiness is, whether or not you got abatements in place, whether or not you got your underfunders in place. All of that plays a role in what the timeline is. So that's why I say you drive part of it. A lot of developers will come to us with a concept. That's easy in a couple years. Some will come ready, like, you know what, my costs went up, I got a gap, I can afford to cover it in my debt service, but I don't have it. That's an easy one. An acquisition is easy. So a lot of it has to do with where you are in the process, because I would hate to create an expectation that it is quick, because it's not, right? You're gonna hear these developers talk about, and there are some other developers in the room that are typically on the project 2 to 4, 5, 6 years. All right, so I've got the pleasure. Oh, I do want to acknowledge my other colleague in the back, Brianna Taylor. She is one of the real estate lenders on my team. If you've got any questions, you can her or myself, or reach out to either one of us at any point in your process. So I have the great honor and pleasure of introducing a good friend, a colleague, a borrower of Invest Detroit, Darius Barrett, who is here from Carrington, Development.
Thank you, Keon. I always love going after Keon because she always brings the energy. I'm gonna try to keep it brief. I think Gary's leaving, so I may have a little bit more time to do the presentation. But again, my name is Darius Barrett. I'm the senior manager here at Riviera, and I'm a huge advocate for development because I do development myself as well too. And I'm also really truly bought into the mission of Riviera because I've seen what we've been able to do and have a tremendous amount of impact in the last couple of years. Many of the projects that we've invested in, without Riviera, wouldn't have been able to get completed. So today, I want to speak about I want you all to take away a few things. I want you to all understand what we do, why we do it, and how we do it. What Riviera is a private equity fund that provides growth capital to real estate development firms to help them scale and grow and build a business. Right? Because we understand that a successful real estate development model is someone that has a project that's leasing, something that's in construction, and something that you're probably either doing due diligence on, and you're building a pipeline of business. Now, before I get into the why, I want to tell you a little bit more about us. URGE is an advisory development and investment platform. EBIR is the investment platform, and we also do development as well too. We've done over $70 million of development today, from new market tax credits to low-income housing tax credits to mixed use, adaptive reuse, you name it, right? We've done complex transactions, which gives us credibility in the marketplace. And we also advise on some of our clients on some real estate transactions as well too. So as you can see, most of our services are real estate related, from advising to development to investment. And this gives us the competitive advantage in our marketplace because we know how to get deals done and we can help advise you how to get deals done. Now, when we talk about the why is that, statistically speaking, emerging developers that look like you and I, right, we own less than 1.5% of the assets, less than 2% of us actually manage these real estate development firms, and when we being honest, right, less than 3% of the capital actually goes to the emerging development firms. So it's not a talent issue, it's not a knowledge issue, it's not an expertise issue. It's a lack of access to capital, so that's why EBIR was formed. Kiona kind of spoke about it earlier, that EBIR was formed to highlight what happens when you properly capitalize emerging developers. And so we've been able to invest $8.5 million across 11 portfolio companies to spur $240 million of development today. That 11 portfolio companies, 2 of those portfolio companies was women-led development firms that have been able to execute multi-million-dollar transactions. And also, when we talk about this $240 million of development, 200 of those units were designated as affordability. So when I talk about the how, right, every year is able to do project financing just like any other lender that you're seeing today. Yes, we can support a project, yes, but most of the time, your projects are capped by the debt that the project can support. So what does EBIR do? EBIR is a creative tool that allows you to then, it's an equity-like product that you can utilize to invest in your project to meet your equity requirements. So for example, we can invest, let's say there's a $10 million transaction. And in our current market, most of the equity requirements is 10%. That means you gotta bring $1 million to the table. And most of you can all find some grants and some subsidies to get that down and also put some dollars on yourself. So let's say the equity requirement that's left is $400,000. We can invest in your firm that would then allow you to meet the equity requirement to get that project completed. Because the whole goal of EBIR is to grow and scale to get you to the next project, to the next project, to the next project. And so since we've had all this tremendous amount of success in our local market, our now goal is to take this same business model and put it on a national scale. Because we understand that there are underserved markets and there are emerging developers across the nation that have the same problem, and we're going to be the ones to solve it. Now, before I go into the questions, I do want to highlight a few projects that we supported that Emery will give more details on. We supported him with a $400,000 investment, and we also supported Brandon with an $850 investment. And this really is a testament to show what $1.2 million we contribute to one corner on East Warren. That's $25 million of development that's happening right now in District 4. So imagine what could happen if we had a $100 million fund across the city and how much impact it could have on our neighborhoods.
So we have heard from the city, all of the city departments that touch development. We have heard from funders, and many times you all saw District 4 projects that the developers were funding. And so I hope you all are primed and ready to share with them your project so they can fund your project as well. So I have the privilege of bringing up 4 gentlemen who are going to talk about their development projects. So it's not just about what the city is saying. It's not just about what we believe, but now they're going to tell you about their direct experience of development in the city of Detroit. So I'd like to bring up Mr. Eddie Carrington with Flux City Development. Brandon Hodges from Tribe Development Partners, LLC. able to join us, but he has a partner, Stan Edwards, who's here from Real Estate Agents LLC. And then we have Shocker Vans from SK Companies. So we're going to talk to each one of them individually about the work that they've been doing. And I want to give an introduction of each one of them. We're first going to start out with Eddie Carrington. Many of you saw his project, The Ribbon, that was mentioned in a couple of people's slides. So let's hear a little bit about Eddie Carrington.
After the tour was over, we all went over to Morningside Cafe to chat. I was able to sit down with Eddie and ask him some questions about getting to the point that he's at today.
Eddie Carrington once again, and just giving you a little bit about, I guess, the journey of how I was able to get to this point of developing an $8.2 million project on East Warren here in Detroit. I actually started off investing in single-family properties and doing fix and flips, and I basically learned how to do the fix and flip investments through people who work at the Big Three. When I worked at the bank, I actually had a lot of clients that looked at real estate as their primary source of retirement, not their 401k, not their pension. They looked at real estate as retirement income. And so, basically seeing them be successful at purchasing properties, fixing them up, and renting them out, kind of gave me motivation to try my hand at getting into the real estate business in the early 2000s. I never really looked at real estate as a primary business. I always looked at it as a side hustle because that's how the individuals who motivated me to get into the real estate realm looked at it as well. Fast forward to roughly 2017, 2018, I started getting introduced to a lot of these larger real estate developers in the city of Detroit that actually looked and talked like me. So Richard Posey, Cliff Brown, Roger Carterman, for example. These are individuals that are tackling very large projects in the city of Detroit, not just single family properties, but we're talking, 18, 20, 100 unit projects. And when I saw them doing what they were doing, I said, you know what, how come I couldn't do that as well? So I started looking into other opportunities to gain knowledge in the commercial real estate realm and came across the Better Buildings, Better Blocks initiative, which eventually introduced me to the Capital Impact Partners Equitable Development Initiative that really taught me real estate from a master class perspective. They went over so much, detail on how to get a project from idealization to completion from the commercial side. And that gave me the motivation to submit an RFP on a project I'm developing now, ultimately having an opportunity to win that RFP, which obviously is not the end of it all, because once you win a project, you still have to go through the process of pre-development, putting together your capital stack, making sure that the environmentals are where they need to be, working with the community to make sure that the community is in agreement with what you're building.
All right, so that was a little bit about Eddie Carrington and his project. And I know Eddie was inside of the Morningside Cafe recording that, and it's something that Gary found and thought to clip it. But what I'd like for you to talk about is the project itself. So you talked about how you got started. Share with us how you were able to bring the actual project online.
First off, who was that guy again? But yeah, this project was my first commercial project, and I come from a background with no experience developing commercial real estate. And so I really fumbled my way through, right? I was very, very honest when it came to the funding partners that I was working with, when it came to the community. I made sure that I let them know that, look, I'm playing, poker with all cards facing up, right? Because if you come to your funding partners in your community and you act like you know what you're doing, they're gonna be able to read you and if you don't know what you're doing, they're gonna be able to call you out, and that in turn puts you in a predicament where you may not have an opportunity to convince a funding partner or the community to get behind your project. So very honest up front, and luckily, the funding partners were willing to kind of walk me through a number of scenarios. I had a very high level pro forma that I kind of, put together, very, very roughly, and the funding partners were willing to say, okay, look, this is incorrect. These, numbers that you have here need to be higher or lower. This is who you need to talk to over at, the city of Detroit to understand, certain aspects such as the preliminary plan review, to make sure that, you understand the, certain challenges you're gonna have when it comes to zoning, right? So all of these different, relationships that I had with the funding partners kind of got me to the point where they introduced me to the right folks to have a conversation with. But ultimately, it was a scenario where I was literally building the plane before I hit the ground. And luckily, I was able to complete it before we hit the ground, literally, right? And so it was a very rough, path to get to the point of completion. But I'm not saying that in a bad way. It was something that I really pushed myself through in a number of ways, and got to a point where I was able to complete the project on each form. So
Thank you for that, and we do have your capital stack on the screen so people can see that 36% of your capital stack was made up of grants, many from the funders that we've heard from today. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Next up, we have Brandon Hodges. Brandon Hodges is with Tribe Development Partners. Brandon actually has 2 projects that he is working on currently in District 4. And first, we're going to cue up your video.
My name is Brandon Hodges. I'm the principal of Tribe Development. We are a Detroit-headquartered real estate development consulting firm. We also recently launched a real estate brokerage that we're in partnership with. We're here today at the Deco building, what we call affectionately. It's 16703 East Warren. This is actually one of my first development projects as an owner. So I have a number of years of background in real estate development and finance, but co-developing this property with my business partner, David Dickerson. And we're here at the building. It's a 2-story mixed use gut rehab. We'll actually get into the interior. We're actually kind of stripping it down from basement to the 2nd floor. It'll end up being 6 apartments and 4,000 square feet of ground floor retail space. Really happy to be here with you guys today. This building was actually really interesting because we actually bought it from the city of Detroit. It had been vacant for a number of years, and as you know, with a building that's sitting vacant for a number of years, water intrusion happens. So if you actually took an aerial view, the roof is actually collapsed in like 3 or 4 different places. So we had to do a full kind of roof replacement and stripping. But all that water kind of came down throughout the building and kind of expands and contracts in the cavities of the walls. So there's obviously structural issues that we had to contend with on the masonry side. So we're doing new steel, new masonry, obviously new window openings throughout the building. And then we have our parking lot to the east, which is going to get a full kind of restoration for the goal of really activating the public plaza space that we have near our parking lot.
Absolutely.
I think one of the challenges that we actually kind of faced initially was not even building related in terms of construction. It was just navigating all the entitlements and the back paperwork and back history of the building because we did buy it from the city of Detroit. There's always weird stuff in title reports that we have to reconcile, and that adds 3 to 4 to 6 months to a process. So working with the city is actually been great because they actually have internal resources that kind of help us shepherd through the process. But there were some kind of quirky things that happened on this project. I think the other thing is just with the nature of an existing building, you go into it thinking you're going to do one thing, but as you kind of strip away later, you find something totally different that you have to contend with. And so we have a really great architecture team, but we definitely figured and discovered some kind of hidden gems along the way that we're still contending with today. But really great project, and looking forward to actually kind of the 2nd phase of construction. So we've done all the interior demolition, and we're actually going to start reconstructing the building in the next month.
So I want to give a shout out to Eddie Carrington and his YouTube page. I believe Eddie was interviewing Brandon in that video. So Brandon Hodges, we really want to talk about your other project in District 4, the Jefferson Avenue Apartments. And we have your case study here as well. So if you could just share how you were able to pull the project together.
Yeah, so for context, most of you came in through Dickerson, I'm assuming, to get here. So when you leave, if you want to actually go by the site, it's like cut up Dickerson, that big fence with the black tarp, that's the project site. So I think it's important to understand, so I live in the neighborhood, right? So Jeff Chalmers is in my backyard, I live 2 minutes up the street. I'm a huge proponent of developing where you know first. It helps with engagement, it helps with relationships, it helps with just understanding a lot of the contextual nuances of developing in a place. Traffic issues on one side of the street versus the other, infrastructure issues. Like, there's all these little things that you're gonna have to figure out as you get into development. This project was actually our first kind of large-scale LIHTC deal, and how many of you know or are familiar with the terminology around LIHTC? Just to level set. All right, so low-income housing tax credit program it's an IRS program. Most people think it's HUD. It's actually IRS Section 42. It is the single most critical tool that actually gets new construction and substantial rehab, affordable housing built in our country. So effectively, the government issues a tax credit. It's allocated by states. States run competitive funding processes, so we had to put together this behemoth of applications to submit to the Michigan State Housing and Development Authority. MSHDA is our housing finance agency, and it's a super competitive process. So I think in our round we had 60 to 70 other developers and development teams vying for this like very lucrative resource. And so on a good day, you're probably like 20% likely to get the allocation. So you can see like you kind of have to like. I'll speak about a little bit of the difference between our East Lawn project and Jefferson in that respect. But I was an emerging developer. I didn't have the experience points because everything's competitively scored. So, you know, if 7 points come from having done multiple LIHTC deals, we're in the red to start, right? So I had to find a development partner that could qualify for the experience points. Hopefully we could be equally yoked in terms of mission and impact. And I found a really great partner, CHN Housing Partners out of Cleveland. They are owners of Orchard Village in Old Redford. So we came together, had the site, kind of came to the city of Detroit, shout out to Josh Bales. The P3 team really helped us kind of shepherd through this process. One of the fun facts about our site, though, is that we thought that we were not going to have to encounter anything with the floodplain. So when the big flooding that happened in 2021, everything south of Jefferson basically is a no-go zone in terms of federal funding to some degree. We thought everything north of Jefferson was okay. Turns out when you actually do the calculations, we are in the 100-year floodplain, which triggered an 8-month negotiation with FEMA and HUD to actually get them to let us build the building. So it's all this stuff that, you know, with some kind of research, we probably could have figured that out, but we figured it out. What you'll notice about the capital stack, and I think this is important to understand about LIHTC, development is sort of it's a basic concept of the business that the value of something needs to be more than the cost of developing it, right? The challenge with LIHTC is when most of the properties in Detroit, we have an inverse reality, right? It costs way more to build anything in the city typically than it's worth at the end of the day. So the only way to solve that is subsidy, right? Like very few areas of the city can you develop a single family house and sell it for more than it costs to build, and that's, you know, really the business model for LIHTC. So 70 to 80% of our capital in that funding stack comes from the actual LIHTC equity. So we had to work with an investor, identify through a syndicator, to actually capitalize the project. And then you still have probably $2 or $3 million that we had to account for. So we got city home dollars. So the city runs their NOFA every year for home and CDBG funding. We also worked very closely with Independent Bank, who was our sponsor member for the Federal Home Loan Bank of Indianapolis AHP program, which got us another $1 million. My partner, CHN, also had capital management funds. So this is a really lucrative subsidy source they were able to bring to the deal. And then your developer fee basically has to cover the rest if there's an overage, right? Like you're deferring fee just to balance the budget. So really interesting project. We love the fact that it's in our neighborhood, in our backyard. We certainly want to do more projects like this up and down East Jefferson, but also thinking about, could we be doing more infill strategy? So we have, on that block, 60% of the land is owned by the land bank. So ultimately we want to put in new single family homes at some point. There's a vacant kind of, old CVS over across the street from us. could that be a new market tax credit program at the end of the day? Like, we're always thinking about how to create more incremental value in the places that we go. And some of that's just through site acquisition and strategy. But yeah, it's a really good project, and we just broke ground about a month ago, and Councilman Johnson's our ribbon cutter. So yeah.
Thank you, Brandon. Next up, we have Stan Edwards with Real Estate Interest LLC to talk about the Arthur Murray. So first, we're going to cue up the video.
We can begin with the City of Detroit and developers breaking ground on a project to bring affordable housing and a space for community-centered businesses to the east side. Thank you for staying with us today. I'm Glenda Lewis.
And I'm Mike Duffy. Now it's all about breathing new life into a dance studio built in the 1950s along the East Warren Cadgy corridor.
7 News Detroit reporter Darren Cunningham has a look at the project and what the community is saying about ongoing improvements in the area.
Development and redevelopment continues here along East Warren Avenue. Here you've got The Ribbon, a brand new mixed-use building. And down over here, you've got the old Arthur Murray building, where developers also plan to bring a mix of tenants.
1, 2, 3, 7,
The dirt is turned officially, and construction fencing wraps around the Arthur Murray building on East Warren Avenue near Cashew on Detroit's east side. Developers say they plan to turn the old dance studio, the 8,000 square foot structure, into 32 apartment units of affordable housing on the top floor and community-focused businesses on the first floor.
And if it weren't for the people in this community, I wouldn't be here. This project wouldn't be here.
Developer Emery Matthews says he went to community members first to discuss the needs for the area and then secured financing from a number of organizations.
So our first and most essential note of gratitude goes to the people who live here. This is for you, right? And when I tell people, I don't patronize the community. We won't always agree. I won't always come off as a good guy, but I will always listen.
He says the project is being supported by the Strategic Neighborhood Fund. Also, it's the first development in the city of Detroit to take advantage of the new housing tax increment financing program, according to Julie Schneider, the director of Detroit's Housing Revitalization Department.
It's a tool that we use more and more to help bring affordable housing through Detroit neighborhoods as another important financing tool.
It was exciting to find out about all the investment happening.
Jacinta Kasich says she moved to Detroit from Chicago 5 years ago, hoping to find an area that had everything she needs without having to leave the community. She says East Warren Avenue is heading in that direction.
Drove down the street, saw people taking care of their yards, saw people jogging, walking their dogs, pushing their children in strollers. And then I came up and down the corridor and saw that people talking about what was coming to the community and all the investment that was coming to the community.
The project is expected to be completed by the middle of next year. On the east side, Darren Cunningham, 7 News Detroit.
Darren, thank you.
All right, Stan Edwards.
Thank you, Councilperson Johnson, and thank you for all our partners who are here. As mentioned, my partner, Emery Matthews, is not here, so I'm pinch hitting for him again. So one of the things all you prospective developers should always keep in mind, and Brandon and Edward mentioned before, is you have to work the art of engagement, make sure that when you're looking at a prospective development, that you engage everyone around there, the people that patronize the businesses around there, the businesses in the area doing so. So if you're going to be a developer, there's a lot that you have to know. You have to know as much as you can about everything, because development is like building a technology platform. If the sun comes up, something's going to go wrong. You can count on that. Something will go wrong, but you have to be prepared to do that. But in doing so, one thing you want to keep in mind is that all of you folks here that are thinking about doing development somewhere in the great city of Detroit, District 4 has been an absolute monster of a partner for us. And our firm is, we've been around for a while, and we've done deals around the country. We've actually done some internationally as well. And when you have a partner that makes sure you get all the information you need to get in a timely manner, that are very responsive, that come out and find out what. We had people that were stealing from our development as we were putting up. We paid one call a year,
area and everything was there. We had extra police cars over there looking for it, and that was taken care of. And I can't thank you enough. And people, you gotta understand, you can want to be a developer, you can be a great developer. Develop in the wrong area, and it can make your job that much harder. So this is really interesting for us because one, the building was 2 stories, and we decided to go up another flight. So we're going to add a 3rd deck on there so we can have rooftop for our tenants. It's a 32 units, about 16 million, the total cost of development. 32 units, we have probably 20% of our units are going to be for low-income housing, people making anywhere from 40 to 60 grand a year, and the rest of our units will be market rate. But not for partners like Invest Detroit, unless in some of the other ones. That's where we got our building from. Listen to this. We purchased the building from Invest Detroit. One of the reasons why it was easy for us to choose that building, they said, listen, why don't you buy a building, and by the way, here's $3 million to go help you develop it. Makes it kind of easy, doesn't it?
Yes.
So now, let me say this. Our resume backed it up. Because we had the experience and we were able to understand what it takes to do the development, as well as understand contingencies that will come in place, we warrant that kind of support. So when you're doing the development, you got to make sure you got everything in place. You got to understand everything that's going around you. And as it was mentioned here, please have something in your budget as a big beginner for consultants. You got to have people around you that know more than you to do that. So real estate interests, we're tickled to death to be able to do a project like this, particularly in District 4, and we're looking forward. They said this piece was done last summer. We're looking to have our ribbon cutting done by December. So Detroit is not the greatest place. We're going to be in December, but we'll be 6 months ahead of schedule, and that's thanks to District 4. Thank you.
Thank you. And I want you all to know and understand that although I live 2 blocks away from these last 3 projects we talked about, I am a District 4 advocate. I advocate for our entire district, okay? And so I want some of you in the room to help activate other corridors in District 4, okay? Just wanted to say that. Now, our last speaker, our last guest here is Shocker Mans. Shocker Mans is he's the principal of SK Holdings. And Shocker is a little different from the other 3 gentlemen that are here. Shocker's project is on the west side. But I'm going to play the video so that you understand why we asked him to join us here, because he's done some very unique things with his project, and we hope that it's something that we can incorporate in projects on the east side as well.
Hi, I'm Casey Jackson with the Detroit Economic Growth Corporation. Today, we're spotlighting a project that reflects both Detroit's past and its future, the Grand Oak Apartments redevelopment led by Shocker Mans of SK Holdings.
Our work consists of modernizing distressed properties in and around the Metro Detroit area with a focus on utility efficiency within residential and commercial buildings, primarily in underserved communities.
We're here along Oakland Boulevard, right next to some of our city's targeted investment neighborhoods, including Narden Park, Russell Woods, and the Dexter Corridor. Over the last several years, the city has invested heavily in this area, from the Joe Louis Greenway to the $30 million Union Carpenters and Millwright Skilled Training Center. Through programs at the city and with the support of the DEGC, we've helped bridge information gaps and connect developers like Shocker to the resources and incentives available, like the SEED program grant through the City of Detroit and Building My Community grant through the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, along with financing from community development financial institutions and an obsolete property tax abatement.
What we're doing today is providing the electric panel and sources in the walls here within the units, which matches today's code 2025, which makes everything accessible to the tenants here in the units here. We've stripped all of the drywall off of the units here, which allows us to add more insulation than what would be possible if we had left the drywall there intact. It also allows us to use closed seal insulation, which is a higher R value than blow-in cellulose or any other type of insulation. It protects us from, it's a vapor barrier. It maintains temperature, and it also reduces the amount of airflow within and out of the building. So again, this is a tight building, and when we're not remodeling the existing structure, we're building a better thermos, and this is the example of how we do that. Right now, we're seeing two big pieces of the project come together. One is the geothermal system, which will be used to heat and cool the entire apartment building when it's completed. What this system comprises of, well, today will be 4 bores drilled 265 feet into the ground to extract the temperature out of the ground and move it to the apartment units. This is the most efficient way to heat and cool the apartment unit, helping to make these apartments affordable. Today we're replacing the roof system to accommodate a future solar panel system that will be installed at a later time. These 2 renewable energy sources will help make these apartment units comfortable and affordable for the tenants that will eventually live here.
This project can serve as a model not just for what's possible on Oakland Boulevard, but neighborhoods across the city. With resources of the state, with resources of the DEGC and the city of Detroit, projects like this are possible.
Because these systems require some sort of cellular service or Wi-Fi service, in this case the cellular service, we're making that service available to the tenants for their residential use, all inclusive at one price at 60% AMI. This is tough to do in this climate, and we're able to do it with the help of the DEGC and the seed grant, the NDC and the Building My Community grant, and the open tax rebate.
All right, Dr. Bacon. Please share with us your capital stack and how you were able to pull this project together. I remember when it came before us on the city council, I think we were all just enamored with the work that you were doing and the AMI level that you're able to offer at the development site.
Yeah, thank you, Councilwoman Johnson, for inviting me here to speak on the project. It's been a long process getting here. My project is different, not just because it's on the west side, but this building is not an apartment building inclusive. It's 8 separate condo units. So I've been purchasing these condo units one by one since 2017, acquiring these things because the building itself is vacant without an HOA to support the building. So without someone to come in and purchase them all, to have a vision to move that building forward, there's no way that this project would exist. And again, so my background is electrical engineering. I'm a certified energy manager, and I'm also a licensed residential builder. So my approach to real estate development is different than most developers. So I'm coming from a utility background where I've worked across the country as a power engineer and a water engineer. So I've seen how utility use impacts the end user. So I took that knowledge and I looked for a problem to solve in housing. The state of Michigan released a statewide housing plan in 2022, and the city of Detroit also had a housing plan, 7-point housing plan. I read both of those plans, see where the problem overlaps. And so while we're here and politicians speak on solving problems and saying, well, the state of Michigan says, well, 47% of the housing stock within the state of Michigan is old, built prior to 1970. 48% of the renters within the state of Michigan are cost burdened, meaning 30% of their gross income goes towards rent and utilities. The city of Detroit says, well, we have an abundance of multifamily housing that are in additional here. So I'm looking at these problems and saying, with my background, how can I solve it? So this particular building here is an example of that. It was constructed in 1965. So can I take this building and solve these problems that I just mentioned? And I can, but my approach has to change. So now I have a problem to solve. What's my strategy to solve that problem? So my strategy is to make something, this housing project, affordable, comfortable, and sustainable. The next, I have to change my behavior as a builder. So typical building, we're building based on minimum code. So I have to change my behavior to accomplish my strategy. You have to go beyond minimum code. And that's what I talked about in the video. You have to do things or implement things that are not standard. So we're talking closed cell installation, we're talking solar, we're talking geothermal. These are renewable sources that helps to make living affordable and comfortable and sustainable. So the last thing that we're talking about now is market strategy. What are the things within the market that will help me solve this problem? Because what I'm implementing is very expensive and can't be done without the help of not just the politicians saying we want to solve these problems, but they're actually putting money behind it. So to do these things above and beyond the new code is expensive, but it requires help. So the capital stack that you see here, I did receive help from the city of Detroit through the DEGC ARPA funds. I did receive help from MEDC, the state of Michigan, through their, emerging developers grant. Without that assistance, this project doesn't, it's not possible. So the other piece I want to add to what Brandon kind of mentioned here, when you're doing affordable housing, the cost of the material and the cost of labor doesn't change because it's affordable housing. The cost of those things are just the cost. It doesn't matter who lives there at the end of the day. But affordability, if you're offering affordability, you need the assistance